Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 74 of the Run in the Paint podcast. I'm Miles. I'm here with Jackson, Joey, and Nick. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, doing great.
Feeling good. Hulk Rang here. We're going to talk about the deepest division in the East tonight. So I'm excited for that coming at you on, what is it, Monday night? Monday night.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Should be a good episode.
Bang.
A lot of stacked teams in this conference. Let's just get right into it. Let's start with the 2024 NBA champion Boston Celtics, who by far the best team in the NBA last season, won the championship, and they kept the whole roster. They extended a whole bunch of their key players, and they're going to be looking just as scary as ever heading into next season. They even picked up Lonnie Walker like a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be fighting for a training camp spot. But this team, I mean, they're the same Celtics team we had last year that was the best in the league. Their over-under is 58.5 wins, the most in the league. Joey, let's start with you. What is a question that you have about the defending champs?
There's not many question marks with this team. Come on, there really isn't. This team is so good top to bottom. Even their backups have been looking good in this system. Like, I don't see them slowing down, but the only thing that could come in there is can they stay healthy? If KP was healthy in the end, it would have been even more dominant of a championship run. But with him out, some weaknesses started to show a little bit. So if they stay healthy, easy over on the 58 and a half, easy over if they can just stay healthy. But that's a killer for a lot of teams, a lot of years. It's just to stay healthy. If they can do that, that's the only question mark I have with them.
I will say, so Kristaps Porzingis, that's a name who was injured a lot of the playoffs last season. He actually, this was like late in June. We talked about it momentarily, but he did go through surgery to repair a torn retinaculum. I don't know, a long word. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that
What?
correctly, but he did have surgery, and he was expected to return to play in 5 to 6 months from the end of June. So that would put him like right near Christmas time, most likely. Nick, do you think that could have any effect on the Celtics to start the season?
Yeah, I definitely think it could. Joey, I'm glad you brought that up because my biggest thing with this team from the jump when they traded for Porzingis has been their depth and their sort of lack of it. I mean, they're bringing all these guys back. They have everyone locked up for the next couple of years. Tatum signed the Supermax. Derek White, they got him down on ink. Sam Hauser even inked it for 4 years, 45 mil. And then Drew and Jalen are Drew signed it right before the playoffs started, and then Jalen Brown obviously had the richest contract in the NBA for a time there. But I mean, they got the tops. Those top six guys are set in stone, and then I guess Al would be their seventh guy. But after that, I mean, if one of those guys goes down, suddenly you're relying on someone like Sam Hauser or Luke Cornett or Peyton Pritchard, guys who aren't necessarily making more than like $9 or $10 million to have a pretty big role and play a lot of minutes. So yeah, I definitely think that their health could be a factor, especially if someone else goes down before December.
100%. I definitely think I like their depth and like Sam Hauser, great dude off the bench. Pritchard, great dude off the bench. Luke Cornett, a great defensive dude that we showed last year. Like they got some, and Lonnie Walker was a great pickup. They got a lot of good guys on the bench. But if there is a serious injury, those guys aren't long term solution. They're perfect for the bench. If they get
I gotta
elevated
correct
to a
myself.
starting role, it's a little rough.
I said top seven, and Al was like the seventh. They have the deepest, probably top six across the board. If you just throw
Yeah.
that graphic back up, like Al is their sixth guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely have the six best guys in the league. And a lot of times when you look at teams in the playoffs, if you have the best six players,
Yeah, that's
usually
pretty
that's
good.
usually that's the team that's going to win the championship. Al Horford's the only guy who isn't under contract. He is on the final year of his contract. I wouldn't be surprised if this was maybe the final year of his career. Could retire after this season, and I mean, it'd be great, now after finally winning his championship. Great career for Al Horford. Jackson, I am curious to hear what you think about the potential of championship fatigue, because that is something that comes across a lot of teams over the last few seasons. Teams that win the championship then maybe get off to a rough start the next season. And this is already a Celtics team that did have 3 players play for Team USA over the summer, and Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum. You can make the jokes about him not really playing for them, but he was still on the team over in playing for them. Do you think that could potentially have an impact on the Celtics in the regular season?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but not much, just because they have been playing, like, most of their core did play together this offseason. And obviously, like you said, Olympic play. So I don't think it's going to affect them as bad as, like, it affected a team like the Nuggets this year. Because I think the Nuggets, especially in the playoffs, didn't look like the same type of team. And I think it's because of championship fatigue, like you said. But I don't think it's going to happen for the Celtics because really the Nuggets didn't have a team like Team USA where they could kind of keep that gel together, like keep that
Keep the
what's it
juices
called?
flowing.
Keep the, like, team chemistry going as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, but one thing that kind of does scare me a little bit is how Jaylen Brown kind of handled that whole situation, not being on Team USA instead of like just in the public media. I mean, he probably behind the scenes was a little better about it, but in the public media, we didn't really see him congratulate Derek White, and instead was complaining about how he didn't get in himself, which kind of bothered me a little bit. And I'm sure Derek White probably, I mean, like I said, he probably said something like behind the scenes that was like obviously congratulating him, but just going to the media like that is the best player on arguably probably the best team in the NBA. You can't be doing that.
Well, that's my question about the Celtics. Coming in, biggest question for me is who is their best player? Anyone?
Probably.
I think,
Jaylen Brown.
I definitely think Jason Tatum, because I honestly still think he was their best player in the playoffs, despite statistically, he still was their best player in the playoffs with their numbers, had better numbers than Jaylen Brown. And honestly, I think that he is going to have a monster year this year, coming off of the Team USA, him not, really playing for them, being out of the rotation a lot. We talked about it before while it was happening, like, makes sense. Who are you going to put him in over? You're
Right.
not going to play over LeBron, Durant. It's hard for him to fit in. But he, I think, should rightfully be thinking, I'm the best player on the best team in the league, NBA championship team, first team all NBA, and I'm not playing for my country? Like, this is ridiculous. I think that he should have a chip on his shoulder heading into the season. And I think that could be, something that could definitely help the Celtics with their record.
Another question I had about this team was going back to last year, was their dominant run fully based on their merit as a team, or was it like they went 16-3 in the playoffs, but was it a product of just like their dominate? Was it probably just their own merit, or was it just like a down year and injuries for a lot of other teams that kind of led to that run as well?
That's a huge question. We're going to get immediately after this, we're going to get to 2 of the other top teams in the East. You could say the 2 and 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference. The East is definitely going to be a lot tougher this season than it was last year, of course, if everyone, stays healthy. But I mean, even like this time last season, it was really the Celtics and the Bucks as the 2 teams that everyone was like, okay, these 2 teams are going to be battling for the top of the East. Now, it's a lot of wild cards. You got the Celtics team obviously at the top. We're going to get to the Knicks. We're going to get to the Sixers. The Bucks again with year 2 of Dame and Giannis. We'll get to their team in a couple of videos. You got a Cavs team that's gotten better, the Magic. A lot of teams that are going to be fighting for them. It's not going to be as much of a cakewalk as I think it was last season.
Right.
Another thing that this team kind of resembles for me, if we want to get to the win total, because I do think 58.5 wins, that's a tough number to kind of decipher. This could remind me a bit of the Warriors from when they won the championship in 2015. And it was a great championship run, but I remember that whole offseason, a little similar to this season with the Celtics, where the Warriors, every team they faced, their starting point guard was injured. And then the Cavs, Kevin Love was also injured in that finals as well. And everyone was like, oh, that championship isn't real because you played a bunch of injured teams, kind of like what the Celtics did. And the Warriors came back, and that was their 73-9 season. I don't think the Celtics are going to win 70-plus games, but hearing all this talk in the offseason about how they played injured teams and all that, could that get them to just be like, just go crazy and prove that they really are the best team in the league?
Well, they had 64 wins last year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did. Hard to get better than that. That is.
I was
true.
about to say I might have a hot take. I think they hit 70 games this year. I think
Oh,
they
you
hit,
do think so? Okay.
I honestly
okay.
think they could hit 70 games this year, even with KP out, because Horford can hold his own for at least a little bit, especially if he has a full off season to recover. It's when the playoffs that it's like towards the end of the season, it's like, okay. But hopefully Porzingis will be healthy and back by then. So
I forgot Joey was a hot take king.
I don't know, man. I still think I don't
Mike Brown
see
getting fired.
Mike Stop.
Back.
No, Tyronn Lue getting
Tyronn
fired by
Lue.
Christmas.
Tyronn Lue's
That was
fired by
the other
Christmas.
one.
Oh yeah, my bad.
But no, the Celtics, like, you bring up a great point, Miles. I think they might have a chip on their shoulder, and just like there's a lot of guys with chips on their shoulder, like you said, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis to be healthy and dominant when he comes back. Like, there's a lot of guys that have still a lot to prove for a team that last year they just had to win the championship to prove themselves. And now, and it's dropped 64 wins. And you have more motivation. I don't think championship fatigue will come out. I think they're going to be a well-oiled machine. I think they have it down, but I would not be surprised if in the playoffs, same thing happens like what happened to the Warriors. Maybe not a comeback, but like everybody else kind of steps up and gives them a tougher time than they did in the regular season.
Okay. I like that hot take. I definitely do. I'm not mad at it at all. I would love to see it happen, honestly. A team go for 70 wins. Because
I don't think Joe Mazzulla would let that happen. I just feel like Joe Mazzulla, like once they clinch the 1 seed, he would be like, all right, let's like make sure these guys are rested for the playoffs. We don't really care about
what they did.
getting...
That's kind of what they did at the end of last season. Once they officially clinched it. I mean, they basically had it locked up for the whole second half of the season.
Yeah.
I have an even hotter take.
Oh, gosh. All right, what is it?
Oh, boy.
Celtics aren't even going to finish as the 1 seed this year.
Hey,
here we go.
I don't think that that's a hot take. Honestly, I mean, I would not be surprised whatsoever if they did not get.
You guys are crazy.
The number
of course, Goglin was going to think his Knicks are going to take the 1 seed.
I'm not even talking about the Knicks.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I don't know who it's going to be, but I think there's going to be a team that's going to finish better than them. There's so many wild cards.
That's going to be your.
I know you're not.
It's going to be your hot take for the Knicks.
I know he's not taking Joel. I know he's not taking Joel.
But I don't mind that take at all. Like the Celtics, when it comes to playoff time, I mean that's another thing with this team. It could go one of two ways. They could go the route that Joey's saying, like I was saying before, how they're going to have a chip on their shoulder and they're just going to breeze through the regular season and have a great record. Or they do get that championship fatigue because they have three of their players in their starting lineup playing for Team USA, and Porzingis is out for the first half of the season, and their record isn't that great, by the end of the season. But we know when the playoffs come around, this team is the favorite if healthy, and they could just have a lax regular season. We've seen that before where, teams...
I got a sleeper team for it.
Let's talk win total. Let's see. I want to know if you guys are taking the over-under.
58.5 wins. Jackson, he's got to go under if he's saying they're not going to be 1 seed.
I'm going to have to go. I mean, they didn't lose anybody. They're bringing everybody back. They had 64 wins last year. We're talking like they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. I'm going over.
I'm going over, obviously.
I think they finished as the 2 seed behind the Orlando Magic.
Oh, boy.
What is going on here?
Everyone just turned the podcast off. Everyone just turned it off.
Hear me out. I think that's going to be the case because I think Paolo's going to be most improved player. So sue me.
Most improved player. That award needs to be banned if he wins most improved player.
I agree. I tend to agree with you. I hate that.
I'm not saying I would agree with it. I'm not saying I would agree with it, but I think just based off what we've seen,
you've gone from saying
averaging I think he's going to average like 28 points per game.
Dude, you've been saying guys like Jalen Johnson and Jabari Smith are this is like your fourth guy for most improved player in these preview videos.
Yep.
I can't wait. Well, eventually, when we get to the actual preseason burning questions where we'll talk about each individual award, I'm excited to hear who the one guy is going to be for Jackson for that award. Me personally, I am going to go under by half a game. This team's going to win 58 games.
Okay.
Because I think that the whole league is going to be way more competitive. I think the Celtics, when it comes to playoff time, are still going to be the favorite in the East, but in the regular season, it's going to be way more difficult to get to 60 plus wins, I think. So I'm going to go 58 wins. I think it's going to be a very, very tight Eastern Conference at the top.
All right.
So let's move on to the New York Knickerbockers.
Over.
Coming off of
He didn't even hear the win total.
didn't even hear anything yet, but coming off a great season last year, number 2 seed in the East at 50 wins. Mangled through tons of injuries, fought as best as they could. They end up losing in 7 games in the second round to the Indiana Pacers. Then in the offseason, they trade for Mikal Bridges, one of the top players to be moved. I still can't believe that he's on this Knicks team. Then they lose Isaiah Hartenstein. That's really their big moves of the summer, and it was a big one. They've got the Villanova Knicks, man.
The Villanova Knicks. There it is.
Yeah, that's a 60-win team.
60-win team?
God. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? And he said it's going to be the Knicks. He just said it was the Magic. He's saying they're going for 60 wins and the Celtics would finish as the 2 seed. I told you.
All right.
I told you he thought it was going to be the Knicks.
All right, Jackson, talk about your Knicks.
Dude, this team chemistry is going to be off the charts. Okay? They have a great team. OG is going to be a perfect piece to go alongside the Villanova Knicks. I think it's going to be a lot better than everyone's thinking. Jalen Brunson has gotten better every single year. Who's to say that Jalen Brunson can get even a little better? We saw how he got better in the playoffs. He could become an even bigger leader when he's got all of his best friends by his side. Not to mention they have the best rebounding shorter guy, Josh Hart, who's going to play a huge role with hustle. You got Mikal Bridges, who we've seen put up great numbers in Brooklyn. We could see maybe potentially his full potential get unlocked being with all of his friends. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for this team, really. Like, it could just be me. I'm a little skeptical about their center play just because Mitchell Robinson is coming off. I mean, he was injured for most of the year last year. But, I mean, and they do have the worst power forward in the league. But outside of that, team's perfect.
Outside of their center play and their power forward, the worst terrible fucking.
Outside of two out of 5 positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they also, this team chemistry. They have arguably one of, if not the best benches in the NBA too, which plays a pretty big factor in the regular season, especially if people go down with injury. I think Deuce McBride is a great backup point guard to have. I think DiVincenzo. I've given a lot of man of the year candidates, but he's another guy. I mean, he could win it. That's another unknown. I mean, Josh Hart's technically coming off their bench. Like, it's a crazy bench unit they have too.
What's their win total? What's the win total for this year?
Their win total is 53.5. And look, this team does look great. I mean, I don't see any reason why this team doesn't go over, honestly, in the regular season. My big question for them, though, it does come with a player that we've already talked about, and it is Julius Randle, because he is coming back.
Awful.
Julius Randle, all the jokes we want to say about him, he was an all-star last year. He put up great numbers, and the Knicks were still winning games with him out there. But he is a guy that does have a player option at the end of the season for $31 million. You wonder what the Knicks will end up doing with Julius Randle, because I think there is a legitimate possibility that, we have questions about their center position. why couldn't he play small ball center late in games?
No.
I know the
He
perfect.
used to be a center to start his
Yeah,
career
I
with
don't
the
hate that,
Lakers
actually.
and Pelicans. He's a good rebounder. He can push the break. They have Josh Hart to rebound. I don't see
Yeah.
why, they couldn't go to that as a death lineup
Dude.
possibility if Mitchell
I would be
Robinson's
the
injured and Precious Achua. I think
Well,
I think there are plenty of overreactions to Julius Randle being bad. I do think that the Knicks they do play better without Julius Randle. That is true. That's why I
They
think that he
do.
won't be on this team by the end of this contract. I think that there could be a trade.
You think he's going to get traded this year?
Maybe not this year, maybe at the end of the season. I
Hot
just don't
take.
think it's not going to be a hot take. We already know what's coming.
Do you know what trade I have in mind?
Randall for Towns or something like that.
Randall for Towns. Thank you. Miles
Wow,
listens to
haven't
me.
heard that one before.
It's a perfect deal for both teams because the Wolves need to get some money off, and they're going to get about I think 16-ish million off the books if they do this deal. And then the Knicks have extra cap space. Cat could be a 4 or a 5 if they need him to, but he can also be a great stretch 4. I don't see a problem with this trade for either team, and Julius would go in there and I think he'd be a little bit better next to Rudy just because you don't need another 7-footer next to Rudy necessarily. But I think it's beneficial for both teams. Knicks have the cap space to do it because Jalen Brunson's the most selfless player in the history of sports. And I
that's
think
a fact.
I
said that's a fact.
It is. I mean, he took what $112 million pay cut.
That's crazy.
To play with all of his friends, like it's dedication, man.
Yeah, I wonder.
Okay, he can be.
Go ahead, Nick.
He can be the best leader. He can be the most selfless player, but I just think they're gonna miss Isaiah Hartenstein a lot.
I was about to say, can you pull up their depth chart real quick again? I just want to check a look at that center position, power forward position.
And Thibodeau is not going to be afraid to run Juju at the center. I really do like that idea.
Yeah.
And they do they're deep.
Man, they got a good team, but that center position, I am so iffy on their big men.
I mean, Mitchell Robinson's first of all.
What'd you say?
Mitchell Robinson's actually a beast.
When he
plays, though.
Yeah, he plays. Obviously, yeah,
when he plays. Like, I'm very worried about that. If I had a hot take about this, my hot take would be that Josh Hart, at least one game this year, will start at the center position because of their injuries. Because of their injuries, I think they're going to pull like a Houston Rockets and have PJ Tucker at the center. They're going to have Josh Hart at the center at one part.
Thank you.
At one point in the season because of injuries.
And look, I'll say this with Julius Randle as well. Like, we all say, the Knicks look better when he doesn't play.
Statistically.
But I mean, record-wise, they were 29-17 when he played last year, which is still a good record. And he basically simultaneously got injured the same time OG Anunoby was traded there when the Knicks were at their best. So we really don't know if Randle could fit on this team. I honestly don't see why not. The Knicks, when Randle played, they had won their final 6 games when Randle got injured. They were on a 6-game winning streak when Randle got injured. It was proven that they can win with him. And at the very least, we saw it in the playoffs as well. Sometimes they needed some more shot creations from other guys where it was just Jalen Brunson. And Brunson was great. He was historic. But I know it would definitely be helpful to have another guy like Randle who can create his own shot. I don't like the way he plays, but when the shots go down, it's going to be great for the Knicks because sometimes, you're going to get very inconsistent play from Randle. He'll be on some games, he'll be off some games as well. But those games where he goes for 30 and 10 in the playoffs, if he's, healthy and, playing at his best, it's only going to help the Knicks. I don't see how he can hurt them.
He's not going to go 30 in the playoffs. Like what?
I definitely think this is going to be a really good regular season team. Like this team is built for the regular season. Playoffs, we'll see how healthy they are because that's the only concern I have for them. But I could easily see them getting the over on 53. I could see them winning up to 60 games possibly. I would probably say around 55 to 58 though is my range.
Book it, 60-win team.
Nick, what do you think?
I think they're gonna hit the over.
Yeah, I'll probably go over on them as well. I think it'll be a super close race again at the top of the Eastern Conference, but the Knicks should be right there because regular season wise, I mean, we saw it regular season and playoffs. Guys get injured, the next guys just steps right in there, and they're still able to have success. Ceiling wise, is there? I don't want to hear from Jackson yet on this question because I know he's going to say yes, absolutely. Is there a world where the New York Knicks could go to the NBA Finals this year?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're the second best team in the East.
I would not be surprised.
That'd be really fun.
If they are healthy, this team is going to be insane. I would not be shocked. I don't foresee it happening, but their ceiling is definitely to make a championship.
When everything was transpiring last year and it was like, wow, Jalen Brunson's going to be a top 5 MVP guy, everyone was like, wow, this is the best Knicks team I've seen in a long – this is the best Knicks team I've ever seen. In 25 years of watching the NBA, like, the Knicks have never been this good.
This is a better Knicks team than Melo had, easily.
Yeah. I think they have a real shot. I think they have the second best shot in the East to make the finals.
I agree with that.
Why is Rob not smiling?
Their only concern is the same thing I have with the Celtics, and that's honestly, if you can only beat the injury bug, you're in good shape.
And that's going to go for every single team. I mean,
that's for everybody, yeah. But other teams have more than one. That's the only question.
Team we're talking about next.
Yes, let's go to them right now. Let's go to the Philadelphia 76ers, who had probably the busiest off season, making a whole bunch of moves. They got Paul George, forming a big three with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond's back. This team, they've made a lot of moves this summer, and they look really, really good. Their over-under is right behind the Knicks at 52.5 wins. Last season, they won 47. Despite, Joel Embiid missing over half the season with his meniscus injury. What do you guys think? Nick, let's start with you. What is a question you have for the 76ers?
I'll get to I'll get the question in a minute.
Okay.
I've been adamant about this has a very real chance of being Phoenix Suns 2.0. Let's bring this big three together and not fill out the rest of the roster, and it might not work like we saw what happened to the Suns last year. I just want to be the first to say that I've said this previously, but Daryl Morey did a great job filling out the rest of this roster. Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson. They even drafted Jeremy McCain, who might see the court a little bit. I think that they did a really good job filling out the rest of this roster to surround their big three. And, yeah, I really like their offseason. You're not
even mentioning the number one signing they got. They got Yabusele. Yabusele.
Oh God!
The French machine.
Aside from just getting the biggest name in free agency, I think they had a really good offseason. My biggest question that I don't know, it's not a question per se to their team. It's more so for you guys. I'm wondering if this is the best big three in the league, in your guys' opinion.
Ooh.
Nope. It's a big two. I'm not talking.
Unfortunately, I do like this big three a lot, but there are
It's a little early.
It's a little early. I got to see them play together before I say anything. But right now, I don't see them being better than my gosh, honestly, Boston. You can even say Boston with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and you could either say KP or Drew Holiday. They're not; those three aren't beating those guys. The Knicks, even I would say, with Mikhail, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle. I don't think they're better than them.
I do. I would put Joel, Tyrese, and Paul George above the Knicks.
I
Big
would
three.
agree.
No,
I would actually agree.
I personally wouldn't.
Fit wise, that's a question in itself because my big question for this team is will it take a year for this roster to gel? Because this is a completely different looking roster than we've seen of this team the last few seasons. But if we're just talking individually, I could even go back to our top 50 players list. They have 3 top 20 players on their team. So do the Celtics, but I mean,
Right.
well, I guess Joel Embiid wasn't technically on our list, but if he was
He would have
healthy,
been.
He
Yeah.
would have
top
been.
Nope.
one of the top players on the list. Joel Embiid, look,
Mm-mm.
Joel Embiid, because of his injuries and because of the Team USA run, I feel like a lot of people are starting to forget how amazing he was last season, like how historic he was. 35 points per game. He averaged more points than minutes played per game. This team was absolutely dominant when he played, arguably the best team in the league when he was playing games. It comes down to the health sort of thing with him. I'm honestly pretty high on this Sixers team to do some damage come playoff time. Because I mean, Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, they fit so well together, and the
Yeah, that's
surrounding
a 3.
players fit amazingly as well. Like, I don't see many flaws in this roster.
3-headed snake if I've ever seen one.
Yes,
Didn't they have like wasn't Philadelphia's like don't they have a snake somewhere in their logo like intertwined?
they do on their court. Yes, they do. That's
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Goglin, how are you doing
I don't
over
know.
there?
Miles, let me talk to you real quick though, because
Okay.
I think that you're high on this team for good reason, and I think their playoff. I think they're gonna I think they're gonna do damage in the playoffs as well. Even though we haven't seen it from Joel consistently in the playoffs. Paul George kind of he disappears sometimes in the playoffs, but the way I do think that they're gonna struggle a little bit in the regular season, like you said, to just have it all gel. So I'm of the opinion that they might not get their over in win total, but they might have an impact in the playoffs that is not necessarily like they could upset a first. Like if they might not get home court advantage, they might be a 5 seed. But
I tend to
I
agree
can
with
see them.
I tend to agree with that also. I would take the under for this team. I think they're going to win less than 50 games, but not by much. So they'll sneak
Right.
into like maybe a 6 seed or a 7th seed again. But I could easily say seeing them make it to the second round
Yeah.
Oh,
with
easily.
with the talent on this team. Yeah,
Dude, second round. This season's a failure if they don't get to the second round. That should be the baseline for this team.
Yeah.
that's the floor. That should be the floor.
That's
Yeah,
the floor
I
of this
agree.
team.
Yeah.
Ceiling, I honestly think the ceiling could be NBA Finals if they get the right matchup. But again, that's if they get the right matchup. I definitely think they could beat a Knicks team again because they were pretty close last season and they got better. I know the Knicks got better as well, but I think that the Sixers and Knicks, that's a very even matchup.
Oh, stop it.
No, it is.
Your hate of
No,
Joel
it's not.
Embiid is overtaking you, and it doesn't make any sense.
No. How does it not make any sense? How
It
many
doesn't-
games did he play last year?
The Knicks have one player that is like on the same level as I think the 76ers top 3. I think Jalen Brunson is in the same atmosphere as those 3, and I think that the next guy on the Knicks is levels off of Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, or Joel Embiid.
We
It's the fact
literally
that they have
ranked
way
it.
more depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the fact that they have way more depth. They're all friends. They have a really good defensive coach. They play in Madison Square Garden. That is what makes the Knicks like hyped up, like actually like really good. Like they're going to be good for those reasons. It's not because they have a solid like star level of guys. Like the 76ers have stars.
Jackson, do you care
All
to
right,
rebuttal?
I'm not even listening to what he says because he's an idiot. Okay?
well, that's the problem
Listen,
when it comes to debating. You have to listen to
I
the other
don't trust
person.
Yeah,
I don't trust
'cause
a
Nick
team
was
that has
right.
2 players. I don't trust a team that has their top 2 players are both very injury prone. Paul George is an injury prone player. Let's not go over that fact either. Joel Embiid very injury prone. Paul George very injury prone. Both not the best playoff performers. I don't see it. I don't see the hype. I really don't.
I think this team has the ability to bypass some injuries if it comes, which they were not able to do last year.
No. Because
They
when I
do.
see Joel Embiid in the first game of the season, he's out for the whole season. He's not going to be able to rebuttal that.
Okay, and you know who they have to back him up? They have Andre Drummond, one of the best backup center in the league, depending on Isaiah Hartenstein if he starts or not. Looking at him, what he did with the Sixers a couple seasons ago, he was amazing as a backup. 9 boards in 18 minutes per game. He was amazing in a backup role, and he's gone to the 76ers because he wants to win, and because he knows in his opportunities to start, he's going to put up huge numbers. Last season, 18 rebounds per game in 10 starts. That's still a decent sample size. He can do a lot for the Sixers team when Embiid gets injured. It's going to be way more reliable than if, he got injured in the past and you had Paul Reed. You still have one of the elite rebounders of the current game as well as in the history of basketball who knows how to play with other star players. If Paul George goes down with an injury, you can slide in Eric Gordon, a veteran who's been in those situations before. They have Kyle Lowry, Reggie. They have players to get through the regular season. They have experience in the playoffs aside from a Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And that's even the lack of experience for Joel Embiid is why I think the Sixers will go far. Because I think the fact that as Nick's phone falls down for a second,
Gotta turn on that Do Not Disturb.
Joel Embiid being the only MVP to not make it to a conference final, I think he's way too good to have that notion on his name with the numbers that he can put up. So I think that'll end this season. I think the Sixers will go to the conference finals. And I just really like this team.
Dude, they're going to be a 4th or 5th seed. They might not even get home court advantage, first of all.
But did that matter for the Mavericks or the Pacers last year?
Yeah, the Pacers.
Did that matter for the Heat 2 years ago? That doesn't
the
matter
Mavericks
anymore.
have people who perform in the playoffs. I have not seen Joel Embiid perform in the playoffs.
He led the league in scoring in the playoffs.
Okay. What about his fourth quarter? What did he do in the clutch? Nothing.
Yeah, well, this year he's going to have Paul George and Tyrese Maxey to help him out. So
he's got more guys to help him out.
Paul George hasn't been clutch in the playoffs either.
I think this move for Paul is happening at the best time in his career because he had the lowest usage since his 3rd year in the league last year, and he's going to be just a little bit more accustomed to being that 2nd or 3rd guy, and I think he's going to thrive in that role.
You keep throwing around this playoff experience, and you didn't have this question for the Knicks where they haven't made it out of the 2nd round either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Jalen Brunson's a dog, but he hasn't led his team past the 2nd round, even with Julius Randle out and they're better. I'm just saying.
What? The only reason they didn't make it out of the 2nd round was because he got injured.
No, it's not. The Pacers were not losing that game. The Pacers were not losing that last game. You know it's true. They were on fire that last game.
TJ McConnell.
Yeah, shout out to TJ McConnell for the contract extension, by the way.
The Knicks.
Legit. The Knicks and Sixers are very evenly matched. They are very, they're on the exact same tier because they also, like Joey just said, they haven't made it past the 2nd round either. They have players who do perform in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, 33 points per game in the playoffs. I know his 4th quarters were a bit rough, but you can't overlook a guy who's automatically giving you 30 and 10 at the least.
At some point, the other guys have to step up too. You can't just look at that 4th quarter. If he scored 30 points a game and none in the 4th quarter, then somebody else has to step up. He carried them through the first 3.
I'm looking at the 4th quarter and all that. I'm looking at his past years. It's not just every year he's been in the playoffs, he has not looked good in the playoffs.
All right, well, last year Tyrese Maxey averaged 30 points a game on 44.5 minutes. The year before that, when he was 22, he averaged 20.5. And the year before that, when he was 21, he averaged 21. So there's a playoff guy if I've ever seen one.
Agreed.
And he's going to be – if he has to be the guy to lead it, then I'm pretty confident that Joel and Paul George can follow his lead.
I know it's a hypothetical, but if the Sixers had Paul George last year instead of Tobias Harris, do they beat the Knicks in the first round?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely. I mean, I know it's a
Absolutely.
hypothetical, but I would definitely favor the Sixers at least over the New
That's
York
my
Knicks.
ideal. I think this is my ideal playoff round one, though. I want to
Yes.
see it. I want to see the Knicks possibly get the 2 or the 3 seed, and the Sixers get like the 6 or 7 seed, and they
It was
have to
fun
play
last
each
year.
other. They have to play. I want to see that again, but I want
The
both teams
Knicks
to be healthy.
at the 7th seed.
What?
No, he said Knicks to 6 or 7.
Yeah, if
That's what
that
it's gonna be.
happens.
That's what
Either
it's
way,
gonna
I
be.
just want to see it. That's what I'm saying. I want to see it so we can stop all this smack talking and just be like, well, the proof is in the pudding.
I just think the Joel Embiid hate is a little unwarranted
Why?
in my personal opinion.
Why?
Well, because every single, he's led the league in scoring the last 3 years. He's an elite player. He's one of the at the very least, he's a top 5 player in the world. 35 points per game is ridiculous. He improved his playmaking. He plays perfectly on the offensive end, and he's a great defender as well. Like, and in the playoffs the last few seasons, they've gone up against some pretty good teams. The only, I think upset loss was that 2021 season where they lost to Atlanta because of Ben Simmons. Previous, few seasons, the teams that they've lost to, it's been pretty warranted. I think that the playoffs, woes of Joel Embiid, they've also played against better teams. And he has, at least last season and at times the previous seasons, he has stepped up. So
All I know is that this is going to be a really competitive division, and I'm really excited to watch those top 3 teams play each other often.
Bless
yes.
you. I definitely think it's just going to be between these 3 teams. These 3 teams are just going to completely dominate this division. And these next 2 teams we have to talk about are just going to be terrible.
Yeah, if you guys want to stop listening, we understand.
Let's go to the team up north, the Toronto Raptors, who last season did what we wanted them to do. They traded away OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. They hit the reset button. And this offseason really didn't do a whole lot. It was like they extended Scotty Barnes, of course. This is their team going into the season. Their over-under is
Trash.
30.5 wins when last season they won 25 games. And, this team,
It's
team,
bad.
I don't know how to feel about this team because when you look at the starting 5, it's not bad. It's not awful.
Yeah,
But
but then you look at the bench.
in this loaded Eastern Conference, is this a team that should be competing? Probably not.
My biggest question is how many times are the Cavs going to lose to the Raptors this year?
What?
What?
What correlation is that? Well, the
What's wrong
first
with
game
you?
the first game is Cavs Raptors, and that is
The
a
answer
rough
should
first
be
game.
0. The
The
answer
answer
should be 0. It will not be 0.
That's fair. I like this team. Like, this team is gonna be bad, but I'm just happy they're finally rebuilding because they got a lot of good young players that are a couple years away from, if they keep progressing, then this team can be a playoff contender. But they're a couple years away still. Scotty, as great as he is, he's not the guy to lead this team to a playoffs now. If
Correct.
RJ keeps improving now that he's back in Canada and home, Emmanuel Quickly's still good. They still got Grady Dick. Ochai Agbaji, I know we liked. They don't have many big weaknesses on that team. It looks like they're all got solid players in every place and some good depth.
Big
But
weakness.
there's nothing that stands out that can compete with the rest of the teams in the East.
I don't know. I see Garrett Temple down there.
Garrett Temple. One priority that this team will have is getting off Bruce Brown's $23 million expiring deal. That's probably the big thing that they want to do this season. To me, I mean, it'll be a successful season if they're at the bottom of the standings. Something that I do hope to see is I want to see if Emmanuel Quickly or RJ Barrett, if they really are, those surrounding pieces to Scotty Barnes for this rebuild, because quickly he looked great in the second half of the season post the Knicks trade. RJ Barrett, when he did play, incredibly efficient. He shot like 56% from the field. He was awesome for Toronto. I just want to see if they can keep that up this season. I think this is, a team that should be, near the bottom of the standings. But I mean, 30.5 wins. This is still a team that on paper with their starting five, they could still rack up some wins, at least to begin the year. They could play spoiler role to start the season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like this team, if they went all out and tried to win every single game, they would not be very good, and they don't have a chance of making it out of the first round of the playoffs, even if they made it there. So they should be thinking about the future. And the way that they should go about this year is to figure out, like you said, Miles, if it's going to work with Quickly and Barrett next to Scotty Barnes, and if that's the core that they want to build around, then who else is going to stick around for the upcoming next years? Because they just drafted, I think, one of the most NBA-ready guys from the whole class in Jacoby Walter. I'm really excited to see him out of Baylor. And they also drafted Jamal Shead, who's a really interesting, smaller point guard out of Houston, who was really good at Houston. We'll see what he's got.
He's a
Grady
leader.
Dick and Ochai Abaji, like you said, it's like who's gonna be there in the next 5 years, and let's figure it out this year as soon as we can.
This is the time to show it. This is the rebuilding, the progress. Like I agree with exactly what you said, Nick. Like this is the time if they get rid of Bruce Brown's contract, which they should, and they hopefully will. That next guy, you have all the opportunity in the world to be that next guy. It's just who's going to do it.
Yeah, this is the time, like you guys are saying, for guys to step up, show what they can do. There are some guys on here that just they're finally going to get the chance to really play, a lot for this team. Mainly talking about Davion Mitchell could, try to
Yeah.
revive his career as a former lottery pick for Sacramento.
He's
Grady
dramatic.
Dick can get more time. He got a lot of time near the end of the season. Ochai Agbaji has really struggled to start his career because of, weird inconsistent playing time with Utah. When he got it with Toronto last year, he was awful, 22% from three. Maybe starting, a training camp with the team, with the Raptors, knowing his full role, he's going to be playing minutes at that backup, wing position. He should play better. But it's really about, it's about player development. If you get wins, cool. If not, no big deal. And then we'll go to the lottery, see what happens. I don't think this is going to be a total lost year for Toronto, even though it kind of feels like it could be. It just depends on, what players can, really show what they can do this year.
I
Yep.
agree.
So 30.5 wins. Are we all taking the under, we think?
Under.
I'll probably
the
take the under. They can do it. They can hit 30, I think, but I hope they don't. They should be in the mid-20s.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll go under. I'll go under for the sake of it. All right, final team. We've got the Brooklyn Nets, the GFF.
GFF!
Guys, we had a great
Garbage
video.
fire. Garbage fire franchise.
Yes,
Garbage fire franchise.
for those who do not know, Brooklyn Nets. Similar to the Raptors from last season. The Nets, I think, had a great offseason. Trading Mikal Bridges, they were very, very mid. They trade Mikal Bridges for a whole bunch of draft picks. They trade with the Rockets. They get their first round picks back for the next couple seasons. And their roster, they're set to be one of the worst teams in the NBA, if not the worst. And still a lot of moves to be made, I think, with a lot of vets like a Schroeder, Bogdanovich, Finney-Smith, maybe Cam Johnson.
Dude, why is Cam Johnson winking at me like that?
Yeah.
But this is a team that they have picked a direction. It is to be garbage, to really be the garbage fire franchise during the regular season. And I like it. This team is going to have a lot of cap space in the summer if players do want to go to Brooklyn. They'll have their own draft picks. This was the right, direction for them to go on the offseason.
Usually when we have all talked about the garbage fire franchise in the Brooklyn Nets, it is because of the moves they make or don't make is the reason why they're garbage. But my goodness, this is the one good thing they finally have done. They picked a direction, and it's to rebuild. Good. You're not winning with this team. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Like, go all in. Get your draft picks for Mikal. Like, fleece the Knicks, man. Take it all. Like, they're set. They just got to hit on a couple of draft picks. They're still in Brooklyn, baby. Like, they're
Right.
still going to get people to come there with all that cap space. Like, they're still a free agency destination. So, like, they could turn it around quickly in a couple of years if they hit on a couple of these guys, get a free agent or two. Who knows? Anything can happen. But at least for now and the foreseeable future until they hit their draft picks and a free agent goes there, they're in the mud. And just collect those draft picks, develop the players. That's the train you're on right now, Brooklyn fans. It's going to suck, but like y'all are actually headed in the right direction. You have made the first opening move, and it is good.
Absolutely. I think
Well
similar to the Toronto Raptors, this is going to be a season for player development. Guys like Jalen Wilson, who was great in the summer league, Noah Clowney, Tariq Whitehead,
Ben
Keon
Simmons.
Johnson's there, Zaire Williams. Oh, Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons better be bought out by the end of the season.
Jalen Wilson and Tariq Whitehead, two guys who were really Jalen Wilson was at Kansas, Tariq Whitehead at Duke, two guys who really impressed me in college ball, and hopefully that Brooklyn might trade, like the two Cams and maybe Bogdanovich and get those guys some minutes.
Yeah, Bogdanovich will be traded.
Yeah, he will be. Finney Smith should be traded. I mean, this is still a team that has a lot of moves to make. I would have thought that they would have made deals by now. This is kind of why I had the Atlantic Division later on when we were talking, because I was hoping they would have made more trades. But I think now they're going to enter the season with that roster, and they'll try to – the first half of the season will be about getting those vets' trade values up so they can just dump them off for picks and expirings. But even if not, like a lot of those guys, Bogdanovich, Ben Simmons, Dennis Schroeder, all expiring contracts. So even if they stay there or end up getting bought out post, deadline, they're still going to have the cap space, coming up.
Simmons' contract is finally up.
Yes, his $40 million, baby, this final season
of his contract year. He's going to blow out. Trust.
Dude,
imagine. That'd be crazy if that happened. The final year of his deal, he comes out and averages like 12, 10, and 8. That'd be insane. It is in play. It is honestly in play because
it's not. Well, it's not in play.
There's no reason that he couldn't be the best player on this team.
There is a reason. He cannot put the ball into the bucket. He just can't. He is allergic to the bottom of the bucket.
Contract year, he's going to average an amazing season.
He's a 6'10" point guard.
Imagine that he's played 57 games over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah,
it's unheard of.
He's so bad. I hate this man so much.
What we haven't talked about? The Brooklyn Nets did hire Jordy Fernandez.
Yes, they did. That is a good point. Forgot to mention.
Which just adds to their wonderful offseason they had. They acquired 8 first-round picks this offseason.
Woo!
Dude, huge.
So wait,
that's crazy.
It's going to be whiff.
Cooper Flag.
Whiff. They didn't acquire that this offseason, you bozo.
Joey, I like what you said about the fact that they can turn around quickly. I think that they're going to position themselves to have the best chance to draft Cooper Flag. I can honestly see him being in Brooklyn in a year. That would be real. I think that would be good for the league, for Cooper, for Brooklyn. I think it'd be really good. If they do that, then obviously there's going to be guys who want to play with this kid. So they might want to hold on to Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, guys who can put the ball in the bucket around him. And I don't know. It'll be interesting.
My question for this team, literally, how many points is Cam Thomas going to average per game?
Cam Thomas is about to average 40 points on 80 shots a game.
Dude. He is a walking bucket. I was so impressed by what he was able to do last year as the only half-court creator. He can do everything, on the offensive end when it comes to scoring at the guard position. Great finisher, good mid-range shooter, great handler of the ball.
Difficult shot making, nobody else.
he's going to be a guy that's very, very valuable later in his career. But for now, he gets to just see what it's like to be a number one option. Dude, this is a low key potential guy to make his first All-Star game because he could put up like 27, 28 points per game.
Yeah,
He's gonna put up like 80.
he's gonna make the thumbnail for this episode.
Yo.
Yeah, he is. He's their best player. Well, Nick Claxton, maybe. I don't know.
Nick Claxton, didn't he just get a contract extension?
He
too?
did just get a contract
But,
extension.
dude, if they
Their
get
best
Cooper
player
Flag, they're good.
is gonna be Benjamin Simmons.
Ben Simmons. Oh my goodness.
Goglin, I
No,
can't.
you just agreed with me.
I
Like, 20
can't.
seconds.
I can't. I just can't.
I said it wouldn't
Miles,
be crazy if he averaged 12, 10, and 8, but if that's like 12,
You
10,
literally
and 8,
said he would be the best player on this team.
which is not saying a
Potentially.
lot, dude.
You
That's
want to
not
be the
saying
best.
much.
You want to be the best player on the worst team?
Yeah, sure. Still the best player.
Definitely would be. So they're over.
What's their
under,
win
it is
total?
it is
15.
lowest in the league, 19.5 wins.
Yeah, I'm
Under.
taking the under.
Hammer in the
Really?
under. Hammer in the
They're
under,
gonna-
dude.
You
gonna
know
win 8.
what? You know what? I'm going to go over. I am going to
Okay.
go over with the Brooklyn Nets. They
you're wrong.
they are not going to be the worst team in the Eastern Conference, I think.
Yes, they will.
Because every single season, I cannot think of a year over the past, 6, 7 seasons where the team we think is going to be the absolute worst is actually the worst team. It usually does not happen.
Who was the worst team last year?
Detroit.
The
And
Detroit
who did we
Pistons,
think was going to be the worst team?
not Detroit.
Oh,
No. Not Detroit at all. It was the Wizards. Nick said the Raptors.
Yeah.
The Pistons were a team that were low key. Like we think of them maybe being able to, get
Oh,
higher.
actually, I
standings
think
to
I
play.
had them at 14 as well. Actually, I didn't have them as the worst.
You know, like we didn't expect the Pistons to be bad that year. The Spurs, but we never expect the team, the worst team. They're never actually the worst team. So that's why I think the Nets, they may be the second worst, but they're not going to be the worst.
their ceiling is
seems-
15 wins. Their ceiling
It seems
is 15.
difficult. It seems difficult to get less than 20 wins in the NBA.
I'm pulling up my standings predictions right now.
I don't know.
I had the
On paper, this team is definitely the worst team in the league. Especially if they trade off those guys, but you never know. The league is weird. The league is weird. This team could, surprise and maybe win like 20 games and be the 14th seed.
Dude,
They're
they're
gonna
gonna win
win.
like 6.
Well, I guess the Wizards did win 15 games last year, and they were the 14th seed because the Pistons were so bad. So, I'm going to book it now. The Wizards are the worst team in the East. Nets will be 14 by 1 game.
Not no Jordan Poole.
Dude,
What about Jordan Poole? I know we talked about him, but you're telling me that's going to get them higher than in the standings?
you're right, because he's going to have a game-winning attempt against the Nets, and he's going to miss it.
Right, yes. And the Nets will have the tiebreaker.
Yep.
That's exactly what will happen. You guys got anything else before we get out of here?
No, I'm done.
Oh, man. Shout out RIP to James Earl Jones today.
Yes.
Yeah,
Legend.
facts.
Legendary voice actor, Darth Vader and Mufasa. Oh, and countless others. Incredible, man.
Absolutely. Well, next episode, we will be covering the Northwest Division. It's covering, I guess, it's the West version of the Atlantic Division. You've got so many teams at the top of the division in the Northwest, like Denver, OKC. That's going to be a fun episode to talk about those two teams and, the rest of them in that division. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Give us your opinion. Knicks or 76ers. That's going to be a hot one as we go through the rest of the offseason into the regular season. Maybe in the playoffs we can get that, special matchup once again. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA content. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.